Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, we're tracking a major development out of Southeast Asia, a landmark US-Philippines trade pact that could reshape global alliances and send ripples across the Pacific. This agreement is more than just a headline, it's a signal that the balance of power in the region is shifting, and the world is watching closely. The Philippines has agreed to a sweeping proposal from the United States, promising billions in new investments and securing critical supply chains. This deal is expected to boost trade, create thousands of jobs, and open new opportunities for both nations. It's a bold step forward, aiming to strengthen economic ties and ensure stability in a rapidly changing world. This isn't just another trade deal, it's a pivotal moment in a relationship marked by deep historical ties and recent economic friction. The US and the Philippines have shared decades of partnership, but also faced challenges. Now, they're charting a new course together. For the US, it's a strategic foothold in a dynamic region, countering rival powers and reinforcing its influence in Asia. This move is seen as a direct response to growing competition, especially from China, and a way to secure vital trade routes. For the Philippines, it's a chance to supercharge its economy and modernize key industries. The pact promises access to advanced technology, infrastructure upgrades, and a stronger position in the global market. Beyond economics, this pact signals a choice: deeper integration over isolation, collaboration over conflict. It's about building trust, fostering innovation, and setting the stage for future cooperation across the Pacific. The agreement comes after years of tense negotiations and shifting US tariff policies that threatened to sideline the Philippines. Both sides had to make tough compromises, but the result is a deal that aims to benefit workers, businesses, and entire communities. Tonight, we'll break down what's in the deal, explore its historical context, and ask, what does this mean for workers, businesses, and the Pacific's geopolitical landscape? The stakes are high, and the future of the region could depend on what happens next. Let's dive in. To understand today's announcement, we need to revisit the long, complex history of US-Philippines relations. This relationship has been shaped by more than a century of shared history, marked by moments of cooperation, tension, and transformation. The story of these two nations is not just about politics, but about the deep economic and cultural ties that have evolved over generations. After the Spanish-American War, the US shaped the Philippines' governance, education, and commerce, intertwining their destinies. American influence was visible everywhere, from the legal system to the language spoken in schools, and even in the way business was conducted. The Philippines became a key outpost for American interests in Asia, and this legacy would echo for decades. Even after gaining independence in 1946, the US remained the Philippines' top trading partner and investor, creating deep economic ties, sometimes unequal, often debated. American companies set up shop in Manila, and Filipino exports flowed to US markets. These connections brought prosperity for some, but also sparked debates about sovereignty and economic fairness. The Cold War cemented the alliance, but also sparked calls in Manila for more economic independence and fairer trade terms. US military bases provided security, but also became flashpoints for protest. Filipino leaders and citizens began to demand a more balanced partnership, seeking to assert their own economic priorities. In recent decades, the rise of China and other Asian economies diversified the Philippines' options, complicating its relationship with Washington. New trade routes and regional partnerships emerged, and Manila found itself navigating a more competitive and interconnected global economy. By 2024, the Philippines enjoyed a significant trade surplus with the US, over $7.5 billion, putting it in a delicate position as America reevaluated its global trade policies. This surplus reflected the growing strength of Philippine industries, but also raised questions about how both nations would adapt to shifting economic realities. This backdrop of shifting alliances and economic dependencies set the stage for the high-stakes negotiations that led to today's groundbreaking agreement. Both sides brought decades of experience and unresolved issues to the table, knowing that the outcome would shape the region's future. The drama of a decades-long partnership faced a critical test as leaders weighed the risks and rewards of a new era in US-Philippines relations. Now, a new chapter begins, one that will redefine the economic and strategic ties between Washington and Manila for years to come. The path to this agreement was shaped by a dramatic and unexpected shift in U.S. trade policy in late 2023, sending ripples through the global economic landscape and forcing countries to quickly reassess their strategies. In a bold move, the U.S. introduced sweeping tariffs aimed at tackling its persistent trade deficit. This decision rattled global markets, sent shockwaves through financial centers, and threatened the stability of key trading partners who had long relied on access to the American market. To soften the blow, a proposed exemption was offered for low and lower middle-income countries. But there was a catch. Only those with a U.S. trade deficit or minimal imports would qualify, leaving many nations in a precarious position. The Philippines, despite its income status, found itself excluded from these exemptions due to its significant trade surplus with the U.S. This exclusion put its vital export sectors, electronics, garments, and agricultural products, at serious risk, threatening jobs and economic growth. As regional neighbors like Vietnam and Indonesia gained exemptions and continued to trade freely, Manila faced the full brunt of the new tariffs. The sense of urgency grew as Philippine officials realized the country could lose its competitive edge in the region. The Philippine government couldn't absorb the shock. Its export strength had suddenly become a vulnerability. Factories slowed production, warehouses filled with unsold goods, and economic forecasts turned grim. This crisis forced both sides to the negotiating table, not just to seek immediate relief, but to forge a comprehensive, future-proof partnership that could withstand future shocks and foster long-term growth. The looming tariff threat became the catalyst for the ambitious pact we see today. High-stakes diplomacy and urgent negotiations replaced uncertainty, as both nations worked to secure their economic futures. The result: a landmark deal that rewrites the rules, setting a new standard for international cooperation and trade resilience in a rapidly changing world. So, what's in the deal? The U.S.-Philippines Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership, or STIP, is more than a tariff exemption. It's a blueprint for deep economic integration. The centerpiece: a tariff-free economic corridor, granting the Philippines full exemption from new U.S. tariffs. In return, Manila lowers barriers for American goods and services, especially in agriculture, tech, and autos. The goal: boost bilateral trade by 40% over 5 years, streamline customs, and adopt global standards for digital trade and intellectual property. The U.S. pledges up to $10 billion in new investments, targeting renewable energy, digital infrastructure, and semiconductors. Both nations will secure and diversify supply chains, especially for semiconductors and critical minerals, with joint ventures in nickel and cobalt processing. Implementation starts January 2026, overseen by a joint commission. Officials are confident this is the start of a profoundly interconnected economic era. The STIP announcement sparked enthusiastic responses from both governments. The U.S. president called it a historic triumph for workers, prosperity, and Indo-Pacific stability, emphasizing new markets for American farmers and innovators. In Manila, the Philippine president hailed a new dawn, promising jobs, investment, and protection from damaging tariffs. Diplomats on both sides described the negotiations as intense but constructive, crediting deep historical ties for overcoming tough issues. Philippine officials see the deal as a shift toward a balanced, modern partnership. Not all reactions were positive. Some regional leaders expressed concern about trade diversion and called for broader U.S. engagement. ASEAN urged the U.S. to pursue regional initiatives, not just bilateral deals. The agreement's impact will ripple far beyond the two countries. The world is watching. The STIP will create winners and some losers on both sides. In the Philippines, electronics, semiconductors, and agricultural exporters gain secure U.S. access, spurring investment and growth. American farmers and tech giants benefit from lower Philippine tariffs and new digital trade rules. But some Filipino industries, long protected by tariffs, now face tough U.S. competition, risking rural dislocation and pressure on small businesses. U.S. labor unions worry about offshoring, while critics question protections for American workers. The deal's success hinges on how both governments support those facing new competition and ensure broad, inclusive benefits. Managing the transition will be key. Beyond economics, this pact is a geopolitical game-changer in the Indo-Pacific. For the U.S., it's a strategic move to counter China's influence, locking in a key ally at the heart of the South China Sea. For the Philippines, it marks a decisive tilt back toward Washington, reinforcing security ties and economic alignment with the West. The deal will pressure other Southeast Asian nations to consider similar partnerships or risk falling behind. It could also create divisions within ASEAN, as countries pursue different strategies with the US and China. Beijing is likely to see this as a challenge, potentially responding with its own overtures to Manila's neighbors. The Philippines is now a core US economic partner, with mutual interests in regional stability and open seas. The political winds in Southeast Asia have shifted, and this pact is driving the change. As the news spreads, experts are weighing the deal's long-term impact. Many economists praise its strategic foresight, noting it pulls the Philippines from tariff danger and deepens U.S. ties. Dr. Evelyn Reed calls it a smart move that secures supply chains and reinforces a key alliance. But some warn of challenges. The Philippines faces a tough implementation timeline and resistance from entrenched interests. The real test will be sustained political will and reform. Geopolitical analysts agree. This is a major win for U.S. strategy, offering the region a compelling economic alternative to China. Yet, social impact matters. Experts urge Manila to support workers and farmers who may be displaced. The deal's legacy will be judged by whether prosperity is shared widely. The world will be watching. With the agreement signed, the real work begins. A joint commission will steer implementation, translating broad promises into action. Businesses in both countries will scramble to seize new opportunities and adapt to shifting rules. The $10 billion in U.S. investment will require public and private cooperation, especially in green energy and tech. Politically, both governments must sell the deal at home, proving it creates jobs and manages disruption. Success depends on transparent communication and support for those affected by change. This is more than a trade deal. It's a strategic bet on a shared future. The road ahead will be challenging, but the rewards could reshape the Indo-Pacific. The conversation is just beginning. What do you think this deal means for the future?